Welcome back to Real Leadership. Today, our guest is Carolyn Comer, President and CEO of Shell Energy North America and Chairman of the Board of Shell Trading Risk Management. I'm sure you've heard of Shell. They're one of the largest energy companies in the entire world. Carolyn began her career in the nonprofit sector before moving to a small chemical distributor in Ireland, her homeland. With them, she expanded the company to England, becoming managing director of Healy Chemicals UK in the mid-90s. Carolyn joined Shell in 98, where early on, she held various leadership roles in Shell's downstream marketing businesses across the UK, Ireland, Norway, the Netherlands, and the US. Then in 2011, Carolyn moved to trading and supply. By 2015, she landed in Houston, Texas, playing a pivotal role in Shell's energy trading operations, driving key strategic initiatives like market entries into Brazil and Shell's direct energy retailing division. Later, as Vice President of Downstream Strategy and Portfolio, Carolyn helped shape Shell's Powering Progress strategy toward a net zero emissions future. Now, as President and CEO of Shell Energy North America, she leads one of the top gas and power wholesalers in North America. I think I got it all. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim. Great to be here. And wow, that was a comprehensive introduction.
It was. You have quite a resume. I'm excited to dig into it a little bit. Shell is a massive organization. I think over 300 billion in revenue, huge company. Can you give us big picture overview of Shell and how your organization fits into the whole?
Yeah, sure. Well, Shell is in pretty much most aspects of the energy system. We split very simply into what we call upstream, which I like to think of as the part of the organization that is finding, and extracting the kind of the raw material for the creation of energy. Mm-hmm. And then we have the downstream business, which is really where we process, we move, and we deliver to customers. And mm-hmm. and so it's kind of that simple, really. I work in the trading division. We kind of sit in the middle of all of that because we operate as the single market interface for all of our affiliate companies. So whether you're bringing a product to market or whether you're purchasing an ingredient or a raw material, most of that tends to come through the hands of the trading division. And we do that because, at its heart, trading is really around optimizing complex supply chains, complex value chains. Mm-hmm. We take portfolios of longs, so supply, and we have portfolios of customers on the demand side. And really our job is to, as efficiently and effectively as possible, match the longs and the shorts. So we do a lot of that optimization.
Yeah, trading is fascinating. Can we double click on that a little bit more and school us on what a trading operation is in Shell? Sure. Our listeners, most of us are from the outside of the energy industry. So would you double click on that a little bit more? It's fascinating. I just don't quite comprehend it.
No problem. I tend to describe us as a wholesaler. We tend to wholesale energy. It's probably the easiest way to describe it. And as I said, at its heart, there's probably two things really that we do. So one is effectively optimizing supply chains. And really we can extract value if we can optimize those supply chains sufficiently. Mm-hmm. And we do that by combining, as I said, portfolios of longs and shorts. The second thing we do is we get paid for warehousing risk. And I was trying to describe it to somebody earlier this week. Imagine someone owns a solar plant and they have a production plant and they want the solar to feed the energy requirements of the production plant. Mm-hmm. But their production plant runs 24/7, 365. And you and I both know the sun only shines during the day. It doesn't mm-hmm. shine at night. So that's creating a risk for them that they've got too much energy from their solar plant during the day and not enough or no energy from their solar plant at night. What they need is a flat shape which manages how they consume energy. Well, I can take that risk off their hands. I can pair it with the things I'm optimizing in my portfolio, and I can deliver it back to them in the shape that they need the energy. That's effectively taking that time of day risk, and I warehouse it, and then I deliver a product back. That's really at the heart of it. There's no total magic.
Yeah.
It is about efficient supply chains at the end of the day.
You've been in trading quite a bit of your career. That kind of clicked for you.
I have. Well, I have and I haven't. I'm probably showing my age now. But I found my way into trading in 2011, but I'd actually joined Shell in 1998.
Yeah.
And I had been working prior to Shell. So I was probably about halfway through my career, and I'd actually become quite senior by the time I found my way into trading. And you know, that in and of itself can be an interesting challenge. How do you gain credibility in a business where you go in as a senior, where you actually haven't been a junior?
Right.
But yeah, so I found my way in 2011 in the Netherlands. So I joined Shell's trading division in Rotterdam, and I kind of went, wow, why did nobody tell me about this place before? It just really, really suited me. I say to my kids, I found my spiritual home. You know, because it's just a wonderful environment. You're at, it is so dynamic. You know, you really do live the macro environment in real time in trading.
Yeah.
You know, any kind of geopolitical move, policy making, it all shows up at the end of the day in what your daily job looks like, and whether you're making good decisions. So it's a fast-paced environment. It's a thoughtful environment at the same time. And I love the energy of a trade floor. It gives me a lot of energy.
I imagine you have to have great instincts for complex systems. I mean, that's that, or no. I mean, because you're having to. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think I've got great instincts, but I think the best traders I see are those who do good homework.
Huh?
You know, at the end of the day, there's a lot of fundamental analysis that goes into what we do. Otherwise, you're kind of gambling, which I don't. I don't actually gamble. So I mean, you do have to have instincts, and you are making decisions on incomplete data. That really great traders do an awful lot of homework.
Okay, well, that's good insight. So what's something significant, that a challenge that your industry is facing right now, or maybe something that people aren't talking enough about?
I think reliability is probably the single biggest talked about issue for my industry right now. And when I talk about reliability, I'm really talking about power. As you probably know, I'm based in Texas. Through the recent Hurricane Beryl, you know, we lost power to almost 2.5 million homes. And that was a Cat 1 storm. And I think that was a huge wake-up call for everybody in the industry in terms of what does it really take to run a modern power system that can show up reliability, where the electricity shows up when you really, really need it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a super important consideration, but it's not the only one. You know, we are an energy system in transition. It's the biggest transition I've ever seen. You know, we've got to get to a world where we you know, we're on that path to net zero emissions. We've got to reduce our carbon impact. We've got reliability considerations, and this energy system that's in transition needs trillions of dollars of investment. But ultimately, you've got to be able to show up with affordable energy too.
Right.
You know, and so for me, I hear a lot of single lens conversations. It's either the energy transition and getting cleaner, it's either reliability, or it's affordability. My argument is actually that's a triangle that needs to be constantly kept in balance as we move forward. You know, any, if you get out of whack on any one of those, you're ultimately going to slow progress. And so being really thoughtful about keeping clean energy, reliability, and affordability at the forefront of the decisions that we're making, I think is super important, which means you have to be really good at short, mid, and long-term integrated resource planning, which we've kind of forgotten about. And I think we've got to get back there.
You know, China is a rising world power. They're paired up to us pretty well at this point in a lot of ways. And our relationship with them has become more competitive. And I read that they're planning over the next 25 years, they already produce about twice as much energy as we do. And they have plans to triple their energy output in the next 25 years. We've got the United States has plans to roughly double in that same time period. Their cost is about half of ours for energy. And we've got production coming back to the US. We've got this AI revolution that's going to take a lot of power. Good for business, you know, but and then you pair that with this net zero push. My goodness, it feels like something's got to give. But how do you think about that?
Yeah, as I said, it's the biggest transition I've ever seen. It is seismic. It is a seismic energy transition. Demand is growing. I mean, most commentators will tell you that energy demand will double, like globally by 2050. We're seeing demand increases here for sure, and we're seeing more volatility too. You know, we're having more extreme weather. And with more extreme weather, you know, you get way more swings in terms of kind of, you know, what the demand curve looks like. Again, I think, you know, we've got to tackle the issues of climate change, which means we've got to be thinking about what those solutions are long term. You know, I mean, I'm encouraged, you know, when I look at renewables growth, it's been spectacular. The growth in solar and wind has been spectacular. With it comes a challenge of how do you manage the intermittency of these things? And then I see the development of some of these really cool technologies, which maybe were thought of as not possible 20 years ago. You know, they're now coming to the forefront. The challenge is some of them are very expensive, and you've got to be able to get down that cost curve really quickly to kind of to get to the affordability level on the new technologies. But that's where policymakers come in. You know, policymakers need to don't choose technology for me, but create an environment and a framework that attracts investment into the solutions that are needed for the problems that we're going to face, and then make sure you're consistent. You know, some of these investment cycles are long term, so don't change your mind every 2 or 3 years. Give us a degree of consistency and longevity in the framework that you create, such that we can attract capital into this space in order to be able to invest in the things we need to do to get to affordable, reliable, and cleaner.
A lot of the renewable energy solutions right now, it seems, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems that the economics don't work without subsidy. So in what ways do you think we've been wise in how we've invested and incentivized, and as we progress, how does that need to change? You talked about it a little bit, but
yeah, some of these technologies actually are working subsidy free. I would just put it out there.
Okay.
And then I think there's a question around, what do you mean by subsidy? Because if I think about it, let's talk about wind and solar. Certainly in the market that I'm in here, I mean, wind and solar are competitive with conventional generation. The challenge that comes with them, as I said, is that they're intermittent. So you're never quite sure when they're going to show up. Okay. So you've got to fill in the gaps for when you don't have any solar or the wind isn't blowing. And we have resources that can do that. You know, we can turn on a gas peaker. You know, battery development is underway, and we're seeing battery installation, you know, more and more. But I may not need my gas peaker to run for 24 hours. I may just need it to run for those few hours in the evening when the sun went down and the wind's not blowing. I have to subsidize that technology. I have to pay it for the ability to show up, even if I don't call on it. Is that a subsidy? Or is that a capacity payment?
Yeah. Good point. Okay.
So we actually, and I think our markets here are quite efficient in the sense that we have an energy market, we have capacity markets, and we have what's called ancillary markets. And those ancillary markets are super important because they are the ability to turn up energy or turn down energy according to what the demand cycle is doing. So even turning down energy, we've got some resources that actually, it's not critical that you run between 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock in the evening.
Right.
If you could push that out to the middle of the night when demand is less, I'll pay you to do that. I'll pay you to do that. So actually we have demand response products. We have emergency response products. There's a whole range of ancillary products where you can actually manage your energy better and manage your capital efficiently. And all of those things come into play. But I don't know if I would call that a subsidy so much as I would call that market structure and design.
Yeah.
And again, I look to the policymakers for good market structure and design.
Okay, great. What place do you think nuclear has over the next 25 to 50 years? There's some pretty cool nuclear technology coming out. China's making a heavy investment in that. What is your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think if you look at any of the modeling, nuclear is here to stay. It is a core part of most of the external commentators' baseload assumptions in terms of there being nuclear in the mix. I think the question you're asking me is more about the small scale, the SMR type technology.
Yep.
I don't know is the answer. It's not at the point where it's being monetized in markets. It's not at the point where it's being scaled. And I think there's a number of technologies out there, above and beyond the SMRs that could very easily become one of that future energy mix solutions. The challenge is to ensure that you can monetize it and scale it in a way where the energy is affordable.
Let's shift gears a little bit. I'm told you're a bit of a quote collector. You
yes.
got a favorite leadership quote for us?
I do, yeah. So you will know the wonderful Maya Angelou. And I am a quote collector. I call myself a quote nerd. But there's one I particularly like from her, where she basically says, and I'll paraphrase, people won't remember what you said. They will not remember what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And that for me is just kind of mind-blowing in terms of really what leadership needs to be. It is about how your people feel. It's about engagement. It's about inspiration. It's about motivation. It's about care. It's about sense of purpose. So yeah, that's one that.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was attributed to her. Yeah, that was a mind-blowing quote when I heard it too. I was like, man, that is so true.
It really is. And honestly, Jim, like we operate in a world that is just changing so fast. Like there is so much change happening around us. I mean, I talk about my business. It's not even just my business. There's change happening all around us. And I think that's when you need that EQ type leadership. Because logic will only take you so far. But it is how people feel on that journey. Change can be terrifying or it can be thrilling. You can embrace it or you can shove it away and go hide in a cave and hope it'll be all over. And I don't think we have any choice. Change is inevitable. It's here to stay. So as a leader, it really is about that EQ and about really helping your people to kind of thrive through what is a really dynamically changing environment.
I like to think of it or frame it as an adventure. I mean, this is the epic adventure. It's not, it's challenging, but any adventure is, right?
Yeah.
I'm with you. Something that stands out as I was doing research to speak with you today, you have a lot of women in high level leadership roles at Shell, really noteworthy. that doesn't happen by accident. So what has Shell done to become a place where women can really thrive the way clearly you are with that company?
We started, actually, I'm probably a product of that, to be honest.
Yeah.
We started on our diversity, equity, inclusion journey. Well, actually, equity wasn't part of the terminology at the
Mm-hmm.
time. That came later.
Mm-hmm.
But we started on our diversity and inclusion journey, I would say about 20 years ago. And that's really when um, people who were very senior in the organization at the time said, look, we've talked about this long enough. We're not moving the needle. The definition of madness is to continue to do the same thing and expect a different outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we going to do differently? We didn't do a project because women are not projects anyway. But it wasn't a project. It was a mental shift into this is how we do things. And we did set some kind of expectations of our managers across the group in terms of how they thought about diverse candidate slates. You know, are you looking hard enough to get a
Mm-hmm.
diverse candidate slate? We did a lot of work around unconscious bias and inclusion. We developed people like me. I mean, I had some fairly thoughtful and deliberate development support because you can't just walk into a trading leadership job like off the street. You know what I mean? Like there's a bit of thought and effort that goes into getting me to where I am.
Yes.
And so that's sponsoring, the mentorship, the challenging development opportunities coming at the right time. It was quite a deliberate move, and it was a deliberate shift from talking about it to taking action, and then continuing to take action. Not the one and done, but
Right.
that's the way we do things around here.
You're married.
I
You
am.
you have three wonderful kids, at least according to you. I'm sure
I
they are.
sure do.
And you have a dog too. Are you proof that a professional woman can have it all?
Oh gosh. At times, I'm proof that we can have it all at times. What do I mean by that? Look, there's
Yeah.
been times when my career's taken a backseat. I'll be perfectly honest. I've taken a 2-year career break, and I went and studied pottery. That's a
Wow.
whole nother rabbit hole that we can go down.
Yeah.
I've worked part-time. I've worked remote. I've turned down the big job because it didn't suit me at the time. But now I'm here. So yes, I guess you could say, if you look at where you are, you could argue, yeah, she's had it all. But over the years, I've been able to ramp up and down gears. There's been times with work when third gear has suited me, and I've been very, very conscious that I can only do third gear because I'm in seventh gear with the family.
Yeah.
And then as things change through the life stages, I can ramp up, and I'm in fifth gear, and
Yeah.
now I'm probably back up to seventh gear in the career. So I think that's one of the things that Shell has been really good for, is understanding the life stages and encouraging the open conversation, but also enabling that kind of on ramp, off ramp
Mm-hmm.
approach to the full career life cycle. That's why I'm still here. If I had to go at seventh gear for the last 26 years working for Shell, I would have been long gone.
Yeah, it's tempting to be short-sighted with people decisions, but it's just it's wise to play the long game. I mean, people are going to have stuff that come, everybody, men and women, they're going to have things that come up and have to shift gears, and it's a give and take. I'm investing in you. I'm giving you, you're investing back in the company, and you got to have that dance for it to be a sustainable thing long term. That's great. Tell us
Yeah,
about, you took 2 years off.
I did.
Okay. How did that, how was that? And how did that happen?
Great. So how did it happen? I was working in London. My first child was 2, coming up for 2, and I was pregnant with my second.
This is
And
with Shell.
this was with Shell.
Okay.
And working and living in a big, busy city like London is hard.
Mm.
And it's hard when you've got two smallies and you are a woman and you're, for me, certainly anyway, I was kind of wrestling with the guilt of the job and,
Sure.
being the mom and am I good at both or am I bad at both,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was busy and it was stressful. And I went, you know what, I'm done. I'm out of here. Like, I just, something has to give and it's not going to be the kids. And so, but again, as I say, I huge admiration for the company I work for. I was going to resign, and I was actually on my way in. Long story short, I met Kim in the corridor. We went for a coffee, and I took a 2-year career break. And I moved back to Ireland for part of it because I wanted my kids to know where they were from. And then I was worried that I might not have enough to do, so I signed up for a higher national certificate in ceramics.
It's
So it was
ceramics.
actually in ceramics. It was
Huh.
quite busy, as it turned out. I thought I was just trading stress was all, but it was fun. It was great. The idea that actually, I could even think about, hey, maybe I'll just take some time out and then come back. It had never even occurred to me that's what I could do. And honestly, my eureka moment was I got lucky. I bumped into Kim, who advised me what she thought I should do, and I did it. If I hadn't met Kim, I would have resigned. And
Wow.
I'm not really sure where I would have ended up. And so my huge learning out of that was no one's going to guess what's going on in your
Mm.
head. You've got to
Hmm.
tell them. You got to tell them.
Yep.
And, and if you do that, then there's ways and means, there's no one's got a linear path. It's all non-linear, but they can't help you find the alternative path if they don't know that you're looking for one.
Right.
And
Right.
so that was a eureka moment for me. Speak up.
I had somebody say to me, you get what you negotiate.
Yeah.
You gotta ask. You gotta,
Yeah.
and if you're obviously you had equity in the relationship with Shell. If you were a slacker, they'd been like, okay, go on, but
Yeah.
that's great.
But I had assumed that there was no option. And that was it. Like, just don't assume.
Yeah.
Ask. That yeah. And anyway, I got lucky, as I said. And I hope more people don't rely on luck. They speak up and share, because honestly, no one can guess what's going on in your head.
What other advice would you give to a young woman that's got career aspirations, but is also in that phase of life with young kids?
I would say, well, don't assume. Number one, it was interesting. I had a young woman come to me about. I did a thing for International Women's Day, and I had a young woman who I hadn't met before come to me afterwards, and she said, "Hey, I just wanted to say I didn't know you had 3 children." And I said, "I do, yeah, and they're wonderful, and I love them." And she said, "I'm so heartened because
Hmm.
I'm actually we're going to start a family, and I had assumed I would have to leave, but now I don't think I will." And she left. I thought, yay! So I thought that was really powerful for me anyway. But what else would I say? Look, as women, we have a terrible habit of taking ourselves out of the game because we're missing the last 5% of the qualifications.
Hmm.
The boys will apply if they've got the first 5% of the qualifications.
You're so right. That's so
So
true.
yeah. Again, before you decide not to, surround yourself with people who can tell you who you are and how good you are,
Hmm.
and actually can push you and kind of like I was never going to apply to work in trading. I didn't know anything about trading. And somebody rang me and said, "You need to apply for this job." And I said, "Are you off your head? I don't know anything about trading." And it was a senior man that I had worked for rang me and spoke about all the experiences and skills that I had and why they were exactly what trading needed in this job at that time. I couldn't see it, but somebody
Yeah.
else can.
Yeah.
And so I've been really lucky to surround myself with kind of, sponsors, mentors, just more experienced people that I can lean on for advice before I take the decision, rather than after.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I would encourage all women to do that. And then I would say be curious and be brave. If it looks exciting and it looks interesting, find out more. Don't pass it. Don't walk past it in the street. Stop and ask the question. Just be curious and be brave.
Yeah, curiosity is probably my top attribute. I think that's just it's so important, and man, it can really take you some places, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Best things in life.
Yeah,
They usually start with a question that gives you an unexpected answer that opens a whole range of possibilities that you had never considered.
yeah.
And for me, that's so there's so much value in curiosity.
You have a big job. You're running in seventh gear, as you said. I would imagine there can be a fair amount of pressure to it. So, what do you do to make sure that you're showing up every day the way that you want to show up?
Well, firstly, I would say energy actually gives me energy. I get a lot of energy from being on the trade floor, and that's super helpful for me. I lean into my personal life, and I think you've got to have a good personal work-life balance, and give time to family, friends in the same way that you give time to work. And I'm very conscious and deliberate about that. I'm also very conscious, and I've become a bit more selfish about me time. You know, things for me. And maybe it's because my kids are older and they
Yeah.
frankly need me less, or they need me in different ways. Um, I've gone back to, so I gave up ceramics for a while. Life got in the way, things got very busy. Actually, I have just started back. And so,
Great.
I'm doing my throwing course at the local art school here. And it's just a time to kind of switch off, get away, play with clay,
Hmm.
with really no intended outcome. It's just the joy of the clay. And so all of those things just contribute to helping me stay in balance, even through stressful times.
I would imagine that throwing clay is pretty meditative.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. I
Yeah.
love throwing. Actually, I also love trimming and turning. In each part of the process, there's something else where you can just get lost in what you're
Yeah.
doing.
It's funny the way when you're really present in something like that, how it gives your subconscious space to work out the other issues you have or something. It's
Yeah.
crazy the way almost better at the day job when I do those things
Hmm.
to kind of disconnect consciously from the day job. It's wild the way the brain works.
It is wild, and actually, it's kind of interesting because whenever I would do any of these kind of, you go on a group team building thing, and there's a personality test, and they say, I want you to stand in a line, and the introverts go to the left, and the extroverts go to the right. The data driven people go to the left. The instinct driven people go to the right. All these different kind of tests. I used to always find myself standing in the middle.
Hmm.
Yeah, I could always stand in the middle because I kind of like the data science kind of logic side of things, but I also really enjoy the artistic, fluid, organic kind of side of things. And so I could go either way depending upon the context. For me, this is one way of ensuring that I continue to have that balance because it's who I am.
You mentioned earlier how important being a high EQ leader, a empathetic, connected leader. That's a great combination. You've got it's where you why you are where you are. I suspect you've got that going and the technical side. That's a great combination, and I think that's the point I think that struck me most in our discussion today, how important it is to have that, especially in turbulent times. So thank you
Yeah.
for that. How can folks find out more about opportunities with Shell Energy?
Mhm.
Connect with you, that sort of thing. What's the best way? We'll put it in the show notes, but if you want to kind of run it down, that'd be awesome.
No problem. I'm not the biggest social media person ever, but I am active on LinkedIn. So I'm always findable on LinkedIn. In terms of coming and joining what I think is one of the best industries in the world, It's just such a great place to work. We post everything on www.shell.com/careers.
Mhm.
All of the openings that are here, including in my business, including on our graduate programs, our trader development programs, our internships. You want to know anything? It's all there.
Okay.
And we'd be more than happy. I mean, energy is so important to people's lives. It is fundamental. Lack of access to energy, people do die.
Yeah.
It drives social and economic progress. To be at the heart of that in a major company that can actually make a difference, there's kind of no other really kind of wow, awesome, exciting places to be. So by all means, come in and have a look.
I'm sold. All right, Carolyn. Folks, until next time, keep it real. Thank you for listening. This podcast was powered by Onin, a family of staffing companies providing real staffing solutions to manufacturing, logistics, and food processing companies across the United States of America. To get in touch or learn more about partnering with an Onin Group company, visit us at www.oningroup.com. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.